Hi guys, now this story from HBR on mental toughness is rebounding from career setbacks. It's from Marks and Nervous and Askenas in 2014. So the story is, somebody had a job loss. They were called on their reviews aggressive, and they had no insight. This person writing an article, he didn't really have insight that he was seen as aggressive in some of the meetings, and so they didn't think that he would be a good person for an international job that he thought he was going to get. So this is how the article starts. So he was very devastated, but he used this as a springboard, as a life lesson, and so he gives some instructions on what to do if you go through something like this. If there's an extreme event or something, or something surprising, you didn't get a promotion you went for. Number one, you want to ask why you lost, quote unquote. Ask the people if they're willing to give you honest feedback. His leaders were willing to give him honest feedback, and that he didn't realize he had been noted to be aggressive in certain meetings. So number one, why you lost, quote unquote, figure that out. Ask a lot of people. Ask a lot of people for feedback. Some people will do those 360 reviews, but if you can go directly to folks and ask them for feedback, it may help. And then identify new paths. What are some new potential opportunities for you? And then you seize opportunities. It may not be exactly what you thought. Like you think you should be at this level, but you have to take an opportunity at a lower level as a leader. That's okay, because in this article they remind us that's where you may build some new skills, and watch for those tendencies for like this person I wrote the article about being aggressive in meetings, so that he could adjust that. And then so really they ask the big questions like, who are you and what do you want? And how do you stay curious, open-minded, and humble? Because life's lessons sometimes help us really stop and think about those things. How can we get curious, be open-minded, and humble about our leadership skills? So what this person, suggested is, number one, they needed to get better control of their emotions. So they took a lower level job in his mind so that he could build those skills. He wanted to rally his team. He wanted to, ask his team for help and for feedback. And he eventually did get a new position and did really well, and 2x the revenue, and changed the culture of the new position, because he was super aware now of that foible, that behavioral trait he had that he didn't even realize that he had. So when you're thinking about your productivity, your performance, we don't want to go into escapism where we just escape and think everything's fine. We want to be, obviously keep an open mind, keeping curious, open-minded, and humble. We're asking questions, we're asking for feedback. We always want to watch for attribution bias. So, again, back to the neuroscience of all of this is, our brain will have certain biases because we're always going through a deck of cards, so what we've seen in the past, we can think of as deck of cards. What we're looking at in front of us is we're predicting, do we know this thing? And we'll look at it through our old set of cards. So that's how bias works in my mind. That's how I understand it. And so bias is called a disordered thinking sometimes, but really it's your neuroscience quickly trying to flip through data. And do you recognize, or do you know this thing in front of us? Or what do you predict of what's in front of us according to what we've seen in the past? So attribution bias is when we attribute positive things to our personal internal abilities and negative things to others. It's like their fault. It's the world. It's the systems. It's nothing to us personally. So we have to be on the watch for attribution bias. If things are not going well, we want to blame the system, blame others, rather than anything personal to us. So, when we think about it, we want to watch for quote unquote lost opportunities, that if we give too much credit for success to us personally, or too much external blame for failures to others. So we really want to pause and say, who are we? What do we actually want, right? And focus on exploration. Stay curious, stay open-minded, and stay humble, because we always have something to learn as leaders, right? So this article was the Rebounding from Career Setbacks, and you got this. So share your best learnings. Do you think attribution bias is present in your life? If not, you better watch for it, because it's one of those biases that can creep in. And maybe you see it in others, but we don't see it in ourselves. So we have to be careful with it. It's a bias, so a lot of times it's unconscious. So keep an eye open for it and stay curious, open-minded,